physicists, how many teachers? And out of the total number of students in Agoioi and other campuses, how many are actually in the medical field? If they're not in the medical field, the challenge for the state is to see how they can incentivize the training of doctors. So there is a correlation between the investment that Ogun State makes and the manpower that the university is producing. But if it's just going to be a university like Ibadan, you compete in terms of number of staff, number of courses, and what have you, and you want to go and study divinity or Yoruba or Hausa or Igbo in a university, maybe they should go to one of the federal universities which is more well established and leave Ogun State University to reap the investment in the critical areas where it needs manpower. In my state, for instance, the governors, successive governors used to go overseas to recruit medical doctors. We have started a university, but the majority of students are admitted to study Hausa and religious studies in the university. In that case, actually, we don't need a state university. They can go to Maiduguri or Bayero or just to study religious studies and the languages. Let me just say, go to the next slide, next one. Mr. Chairman, I will not allow you to draw my attention again. I'll round up. But before I round up, maybe I should just go straight to hostel accommodation. Hostel accommodation is very critical. But there are 5 universities in this country, including Olabisi Onabanjo, that are non-residential, completely non-residential. And less than 1% of the hostels in our universities are constructed via the PPP, public-private partnership model. And so we go to the next slide, next picture. Next one, you see the condition in which our students study. Next one, this is the female hostel at the Delta State University, Abraka, in Delta State. Next slide, this is the famous Danfodio hostel at the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. It was originally constructed in the 1960s as a labor camp for the laborers that built the university. But it has been converted into hostel accommodation for students. Let's go to the next one. This is the front view of Hostel F at Ebonyi State University, built by the Christian Missions 52 years ago. There is very little has changed since then. Next slide. This is a typical student's room at the University of Benin. They cook inside the rooms. You know, the hazard and what have you. But just as they cook in the students' hostels in Benin, they also cook, next slide, in the Kebbi State University in Alero, in the southwest. Next slide. This is the Kano State University of Science and Technology, Wudil. This is a typical students' hostel. Next slide. This is not a boutique. It is the interior of the female hostel at the Michael Okpara University of Agriculture, Umudike. You can see that there is no wardrobe, no desks, no tables, no chairs. They manage. Next slide. This is one of the female hostels at the Adekule Ajashin University, Akungba Akoko. And you can see that on top of the double bunk are 2 mattresses. One is for the squatter, and one is for the legal occupant. Because there is not enough space, they will spread the mattress in the evening. And you can see the bag on the bed, as well as a carton of Indomie, which means that they cook in the room. And that's why rodents also have an incentive to be in the hostels. Next slide is the Apai Ibom State University. It's a good hostel. They don't allow students to cook, but it's looking more like secondary school dormitory than a university hostel. Next one, this is amazing. This is the laundry at Ado Bayero Hall at the University of Maiduguri, or converted into accommodation. You can see that the mattress on the floor doesn't even have the decency of a dress. But just as they sleep on the floor in Maiduguri on the edge of the Sahel, next slide, this is the University of Calabar. It's called Malabo Republic Hostel. And this is Calabar by the Atlantic Ocean. So just as they sleep on the floor in Maiduguri, they also sleep on the floor by the Atlantic Ocean in Calabar. Next one, this is the toilet female hostel, Malabo Republic. Next one is the postgraduate toilet, Usman Danfodio University. Okay, I have been reminded that my time is up. I don't even have the protection of His Excellency to squeeze an additional 2 minutes. I will leave it at this, but I want to say, by way of conclusion, I want to make 3 comments. 3 comments by way of conclusion. Before I make the 3 comments, I would like to say that the electronic copy of this presentation will be available with the Vice Chancellor of the university. And the president of ASU has the over 400-page main report. I promise you that we'll make available copies of the report to you, the Vice Chancellor. And in the same spirit that His Excellency the Governor has spoken, that it should be truthful and open, and in the same spirit that the federal government and Mr. President commissioned this committee to do the work, any Nigerian who needs this PowerPoint presentation, Vice Chancellor, please make it available to the person. These are public universities, and Nigerians deserve the right to know what those in charge of authority are doing with the funds allocated to them. But let me, by way of conclusion, now go back to my 3 points. First, what do we do about these universities? The committee has made 189 recommendations. We made a presentation to the Federal Executive Council. Mr. President directed that we should make the same presentation to all the Nigerian governors, which we did in November last year. A committee was set up. We went back to the National Economic Council twice in February and March, and we are going back again this month because the council meets monthly, so that we can now look at what to implement out of the recommendations. Some far-reaching decisions have been taken, far-reaching decisions by the federal government and the governors. But I will not be the one to tell you what these decisions are. I'm sure in the same spirit of openness, you'll hear what those decisions are. But how do we turn the universities around? Your Excellency, the first ingredient of success is the quality of those who run your universities. You need qualitative vice chancellors and councils to run the universities. If you don't have, forget it. And when you appoint governing councils, Your Excellency, I'm sure you will always choose the best, because I've seen evidence. The chairman of council was one of those who kept calling me while I was nowhere near Abeokuta that I must come for this program. Finally, when I pleaded with the VC and the chairman of council, they reported me to the Vista, and the Vista said I must come. And I said, I cannot fail, Your Excellency. I will come to Abeokuta, come what may. You need a proactive council, but the council also needs to know that appointment to the position of council or appointment to the position of a vice chancellor is appointment to position of responsibility. We shouldn't just assume that we are appointed for 5 years. The state government will bring money. If it doesn't bring money, I just warm the chair and go. No, those who run the universities must bear responsibility. The second point I would like to make, sir, is we talk about regulation, and we always blame one entity, the National Universities Commission. Yes, the National Universities Commission is responsible for regulation, but regulation begins with the universities themselves. It doesn't begin and end with an agency in Abuja, which will be in Agoyewe today, it will be in Umudike tomorrow. It's not possible. After all, they rely on professors from the universities to make all the difference. Therefore, the universities regulate themselves. If the universities borrow equipment, because NUC is coming for accreditation, then the university is committing exam malpractice. And it cannot penalize students. The university cannot penalize students, because the students will turn around and say, when was the last time the NUC came here? You also cheated. Why are you catching me now? So those who run the universities must bear responsibility. And at least in the case of the Olabiso and Abanjo University, I can see evidence. In the new acting vice chancellor, the chairman of council, I've interacted with them for a long time. They need every support. Finally, I would like to make my controversial recommendation. I've always said this, and I've always been taken to task, but I've not had a superior argument. That the major problem with the Nigerian university system is not funding. That's why I always talk about money last. I had the privilege of heading the biggest funding agency in education in Nigeria, the ETF, which later became TED Fund. The major problem is complete absence of priorities in most of the universities. There was a university that approached us for assistance. They were asking for 3 billion naira.